the end of that music and all of those legal words means we're ready for another episode of Trade Masters. Trade Masters, the show where two coaches, two expert traders, two traders have been around for a minute or two, come bring 5 picks each. And I love when they bring a midweek because it gives me some ideas. And that's like, I mean, that's been my favorite part about Trade Masters in the 6 or so months we've been doing it. You know, those midweek ideas. The week gets long, you get tired, maybe you don't feel like scanning, researching midweek. You got advanced coaches to do it. Now, we had a last-second emergency in which the other competitor, maybe they were just scared of you, Frank.
I was going to say, I think I might have scared them off.
I mean, I wouldn't want to go against you. And so I'm going to serve as competitor, Frank, and judge. How does that sound for?
I like how this ends for me. It sounds like it ends with me having a Wednesday afternoon to myself next week is what it sounds like.
Listen, I'm going to be a fair judge. I'm going to be a fair judge.
I know that you will be.
But as defending champ, and quite the showing last week, who gets to go first?
Ooh, decisions. I'll let you go first.
All right, I'm going to start. Listen, I'm going to start, and I'm not going to mess around in the market these days. I've been, a little skittish of the market a little bit. We saw some negative price action today. I'm going to the stuff I believe in during times like this.
Respectable choice.
Like, I'm going to go to the stuff I believe in, stuff that I'm not going to do a whole lot of short-term trading. I'm going to focus on longer-term stuff that I like. And one of the things I like is Cinemark. This is a company that I have liked for a long time. Now, one thing, if you've never heard my voice before and never seen me before, you don't know, but I am a heavy cash flow trader. I like price appreciation, and if I can get things bouncing off support, if I can get a clear environment, I'll take some short-term directional trades. But I love pounding cash flow. I love pounding cash flow. I love pounding cash flow. Look for big returns, good premiums in stuff that I like, so that if I own it, the market freaks out, right? I'm not freaking out because I like it. Love Cinemark. I think when you look at Cinemark from a longer term point of view, those pre-pandemic price levels, we still got a ways to go. And that's been one of the the metric barriers that I've used for a long time in judging where I'm going to put my money. I also like a consolidation pattern. We have a pretty clear one, pretty much for 2018. We've tested some general support levels. Every time it's stretched, it's came down. It's been a really, really good cash flow stock for the last 15 months. Been a really good cash flow stock this year. Now, I've been personally pounding the 2250s. Now, in these type of situations, when I get something I like in a range, I'm usually splitting the middle and I'm going aggressive cash flow in the middle of the range. If things take off, they take off. And on those 2250s, either on the call or put side, I'm getting good, gigantic premiums. For a little stock, $22.50 stock, I go out just a month. Massive premiums at the 2250. If you're the type that just cannot live with without price appreciation, there are some decent premiums at 25. If you want to sell a naked put at the bottom of the range, 20, getting $50 for those Julys.
Not too shabby.
Cinemark's, it's not too shabby for the price of the stock. It's one of the things I've liked about Cinemark. And this is the 1-2 punch I always like to find. I like to find a company where I am willing to own through whatever price volatility happens. And I like gigantic premiums along the way. I like to have my cake and eat it too with Cinemark. I present Cinemark round 1, and Mark the judge is like,
he just walked away. Mark the judge did. With the mic drop right there. But I see why I like it. I mean, that is a long range. It's been a very stable way to bring in some pretty decent premiums for you over the last little while. So if you're looking for something, fairly mellow, right? I think this could fit that. You've got me interested.
Well, thank you, good sir. Now, sucking up to the judge when the judge is your competitor in a given week.
It could work. It could work.
It could still work.
I've known you long enough to know that it can still work.
Oh yeah. Anyone that doesn't think I'm susceptible to flat, 100%. No, I'll be a sucker for that at any time. All right, Frank, that's my first round
All right. Well,
pick midweek.
you keep,
And monthly options expire this Friday, in case you don't
yeah.
know.
So you'll get the nice full July month. All right, I like it. All right, I'm going to do something maybe a little less cash flowy and a little more directional here, and I'm going to start with Axel, AXL. And this is actually a two for the price of one trade setup, I think.
Okay. Do you want a weekly, a daily? What do you want?
Well, let's look at the daily here first. I think we could. Well, are you on the weekly right now?
I am on the weekly right now.
Okay, so just to kind of give you some perspective of where we have some old resistance zones, right? It looks like, to me at least, there's not a lot until we get into that $15 range, past what we've got to deal with right now, right? Which we can talk about here. Probably should head over to the daily for this. When I first started following these guys, I guess it was probably about a week and a half ago, they were pushing into that 13 resistance level, which of course, as you can see, last time we got to that $13 resistance level back in March, we really got beat up. So no surprise that the folks who had been buying into it throughout the month of April and May decided to take some profits there. I was watching that pullback thinking maybe this could be one of those trade scenarios where you scale in to front run the breakout a little bit, right? Scale in on the high pullback. Well, what ended up happening, of course, is we got a little bit of a deeper pullback. As you can kind of see in lines, we always say are, trend lines are kind of subjective, but it looks to me like it's pulling back towards the bottom of the trend line that we can see over the last couple of months. We've been very consistent on the intraday as well. We've got a very consistent downtrend on that intraday, starting to shape up a little bit here, starting to maybe want to establish some support. I don't believe anyone could say we've got confirmation yet. I think we need at least some upward movement from here in the relatively near future, because if it cleanly breaks that trend line, thereabouts that trend line, I think it becomes still an interesting breakout, but no longer an interesting pullback to me. So we do need to kind of see it, catch its footing, I think, in the relatively near future. If we can get a little upward movement, I think right now you are one day away. Because the big thing I want to do when I've got these, nice smooth downward trends that these retracements that end up with these nice orderly downward trends, is I want to take out that trend line, right? I want to get rid of those intraday bears before I jump into it. Right now, I think for me that would put us, and I like to look at the hourly as I'm kind of trying to construct entries right now, that would probably put us in the general ballpark of about $11.80, give or take. That would mean that we held this support as trying to double bottom. We would have broken through that resistance. I'm hoping one more small body candle tomorrow, so the 50 on the hourly can work its way down just a little bit more, and we're pushing through that on Friday or Monday, breaking through that resistance, breaking through that trend line, breaking through the 50 on the hourly all at once.
So yeah, the trend line and the 50 hourly are lining up together. So a break of that would be like a double catalyst, double trigger.
Exactly, two for one. So I think ideally we get one more small candle tomorrow. You can ask, right? You can't expect, but you can certainly ask. And I think target wise, these guys are very, very easy. You're trying to get to 13, right? If we can win this battle and get out of this downward trend, we've got a lot of momentum. It looks like if we get that confirmation, it'll look like we have a developing potentially cup and handle pattern. 13 has slammed us twice. Don't want to be the guy that says third time's the charm. Maybe it will be. But I think as we're trying to lock in profits, that's where we're going for. The great thing is if that's what happens, and even if I don't like this retracement, very easily in the not too distant future, I have a nice cup and handle breakout pattern at 13 with not a lot of resistance until we get into that 15 approximately dollar range. So these guys are also a little bit of a breakout candidate if we can establish some support and ultimately get back to that resistance. But I think there's enough room to try to take a trade on this pullback if we can kind of get through that stuff that Mark pointed out, working our way back up towards 13, reevaluating when we get there. Probably want to do something to take some profits, though. It just got smacked twice. I would want to take profits as we approach 13.
I like it. I like it. Jake, you're here. I'm glad you could make it. I'm glad, and you're on mute, good sir.
Yeah,
Now,
I am, but I'm here.
Now we've already had round one in which somebody substituted for you with a brilliant pick, brilliant analysis, good premium. So you're going to get credit for that one. So we're going into round two. Need 4 picks from you today. You always bring innovation. You always bring innovation. You always bring some a variety of eclectic trades, many of which I've really, really liked. Let's see what you got tonight. Round two, sir.
Okay. Let's start with something a little different. Tell, Tell. So interesting little run up into a nice little pullback right into the 20-day SMA. So I kind of like that little hesitation at previous resistance levels. It's a really cheap stock. We're talking $4, which might be a little too cheap for some people where they don't even want to consider it, which I respect. But for something that you could do a quick naked put on at, let's say, a $4 strike and make 50 plus cents on a 30-day option, selling a 37 delta on a $4 stock, I don't mind owning. It's a nice little commodity play with an oil company.
It's natural gas. I actually own shares of this company. So,
shit. Okay.
Yeah,
Nice.
Yeah, no, I actually own shares of this company.
Something you didn't know about.
Oh, no, but listen,
No,
listen,
that's bonus points.
That's bonus points.
Okay.
So no, I've been cash flowing because I've liked the story behind Tell. It's a little bit of a gamble in the sense that there's some unknowns about the future, but it's one of those high risk, high reward. I've liked the management team. I've thought it was a good bet, and it's prone to these big swings, right? So you could get stuck with it, but it's one of those big premium, cost average down, high premium, pretty liquid stock. Liquid stock.
For what it is, for a $4 stock, like a penny stock, what I would consider, it's tradable. It's very
it's very
not
tradable.
only is it tradable, but you have super tight bid-ask spreads, and and this is one of my favorite things because I don't always get this on under $5 stocks. I got 50-cent increments on the option chain, which you don't always get. Now do realize we're in the high volatility realm. I like it. I've cash flow, but do realize that you can get put. Intel can go to $2. You just got to have a plan, a cost average down heavy cash flow. But it's been I've liked this. So you're looking at the $4.
Mm-hmm. I personally feel comfortable. I've been now. Granted, this has been a covered call stock of mine for a while, so I've been in this position. But I'd add a naked put right at support there at $4 and be willing to take on some more shares.
Yeah, and I don't mind that, especially for an initial entry. Let's say you did 100, 200 shares, right? Especially if you were willing to cost average down on the way down. I like Tell a lot for this, but just realize, the roller coasters. These aren't stocks you have tight stops on. To be honest, these aren't stocks you have stops on. It's either a cost average down heavy cash flow plan or nothing at all. Either you're in on the story or you're out. I'm personally in. Well, I obviously like the pick, Jake.
Yeah, that's interesting. So let me ask you this, Jake. Let's say for argument's sake, you didn't have anything going on this. This was your initiation. Would the game plan roughly be then to boomerang it? So if you did get it put to you next week or whatever, immediately roll over and start selling calls against it?
Yeah, and what really stuck out to me is that you have those 50-cent, 40 cents. Like you actually have some juice on the options, even if you're going to do a covered call, right? You're going to tie up like if you're just looking to sell, let's say the $5 or $5.50 call option against this at 420. If it goes up, you make an extra $1.30 on 420. You're up a good 20+% on that position. Plus, you can get another 10% on the covered call on a cash basis. it makes sense all day long to me.
No, and this is the type of stock we're doing. We're starting new product trading labs, and one of the labs, my lab is named. We're the Cash Flow Vikings, a team. This is one of how to trade and kill it with these type of stocks. Like the story, like the management, like the cash flow. I mean, I get those 1, 2, 3 punches. You just got to know how to trade it because they are wild. I mean, just look at the last 8 months.
Right.
I get called out all the time. I get put shares all the time. But, at the end of the day, it all adds up to more money. So I like to pick. All right, Frankie, you're up against 2 of my favorites to lead off the
Well,
battle.
There you go. Well, I feel like this one's either going to be a big hit or a big miss with you. So we'll see where it falls. This is a little REIT, ticker symbol SVC. Sam Victor.
No, I do not know this ticker symbol. I'm intrigued.
I don't know a lot about this REIT other than their dividend is very, very poor, like a 0.29 dividend yield. You're probably not looking at these guys to capture.
So basically, they don't have a dividend.
Well, they do. It's just not very big. As a general rule, you're not looking to swing trade REITs, right? But
No,
overall,
correct.
we've definitely seen some nice movement in REITs as of lately. Yeah, they've sold off a little bit over the last couple of days. But if you are looking for some exposure into that area, I always look cheap when I do that. Because again, as a swing trader, I'm generally not actively looking for REITs to trade. But if there's some nice opportunity in that space, I don't want to just ignore it because REITs are usually pretty dull. These guys, as you can kind of see here, recently broke out of a long-term consolidation sideways range for what I guess we're going back into November all the way until just here recently. So very long consolidation pattern, broke out. That was a little bit of news in regards to one of the people. They've got a lot of hotels. It's one of those hotel
I was going to say,
property REITs.
This feels like a pandemic, either retails or hotels
Right.
or something.
It's got a little bit of both.
Because they got the big jump post-election. So yeah, that makes sense.
They fit into it, and I think it was Hyatt Hotels that they, I don't know, they had to deal with them, but they just kind of got all worked out. I guess it was kind of what my general take on a quick 30-second dig into what that news was. Testing that old breakout point as a resistance level. Technically, I'm always going to like that. I'm always going to love, it's maybe not quite a Cody special, but it's Cody special-esque, right? Testing that old resistance as new support. These guys being one of those underbelly pandemic-y type of plays have a lot of room. I mean, we have to go back. I think the first real challenge.
Yeah, I was gonna do that.
Yeah, and I have it at 18. There was, that's kind of where I had it. Was at the approximately $18 mark. Doesn't
but
necessarily
a ways to go, right?
Right, and that doesn't mean that has to be, my target here, right? It just means I have a pretty good window that I could work with. Is all. I think a very easy trade from a risk perspective. I think right now we're using the weekly candlestick. We go in above this week's high. We set our stop loss below this week's low and the breakout channel, whatever our rules might be. I want to make sure that I am below the breakout channel. That's the number one thing, right? When you're kind of betting on old resistance to become new support, you better have some room there to work with. So risk to reward is pretty solid. I mean, I'm not, hey, if we could get to 18, that's like 5-1. That's probably a little too aggressive on my end. But as I've said before, and anybody who knows me knows this, when I see something that's gone into a range for a very long time, when it finally breaks out of that range, I expect that range to be the next move. So these guys, that would put us, somewhere in the general ballpark of around 1650 using my traditional targeting method on these consolidation patterns. So a lot of room, good risk to reward in an area that maybe as a swing trader, I don't have a ton of exposure to, generally speaking, and want to kind of stick my toes in that water. Cheap, affordable stock, so I'm not going to lose a whole lot of sleep over these guys. That is my pitch on SVC here.
I love the analysis, and I love for putting it in the radar. This is what I love about Trade Masters. I already know what I'm doing, right? This is intriguing. I'm going to investigate the company. I do like the technical setup you brought up. The risk reward is just math. That's a good situation. So if you don't want to investigate the company, you just want to do a swing trade, the math works. But I'm going to go look at this. It checks some of the boxes I like to look at. So I'm going to go research the company, see what I can find. Thank you for putting that on the radar.
So,
All right, Jakey, round 3. What do you got?
Okay. I really like that that chart pattern, by the way. That was a pretty looking chart. You can't deny a pretty looking chart.
No, you always like a pretty chart, right? Doesn't matter who brings it up to you. You're always excited to look at
You
a.
can
a
always
good
appreciate it. Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah. All right. So I think I'm gonna go Morgan Stanley.
Oh, you stole it from me. I had plans for Morgan Stanley. I did. They were on my list.
Yeah.
Good.
Good minds think alike, right?
Of course.
But like this is Morgan Stanley's a chart where you have very big macro, nice long uptrend, higher highs, higher lows, as well as those little like minor pivots inside of it as well. It's kind of what I would think of as just a pretty looking teachable chart. Pulling back, having a nice consolidation, kind of pegging around the 20-day SMA, hanging out, nice little green candle after a few red days, but consolidating at a previous pivot point. I was looking to play this up into earnings because you got earnings coming up here relatively soon, middle of July, so you don't have a lot of time frame here. But I was looking at doing, maybe a quick either, and this is a choice depending on who you are. I was going to do, let's say, a bull call spread.
Mm-hmm.
Buy the 95, sell the 100. It was a cheap little out of the money bull call spread.
What month you're looking at?
On a 30-day, the July 16th.
Oh, so you're just going quick hitter.
Real quick, a little out of the money, a little juicer.
So pay about $90. Wait, 95, 100 you said?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So you pay about $90.
Yeah, something like that.
So okay.
$400. My target isn't quite 100. I was looking at it maybe getting to like the 97.5. So I don't know if I'd actually look to milk that trade all the way through, but I depending on how that trade was working out close to earnings, I just want to get out the day before earnings.
And the interesting thing about from a big picture macro standpoint, because the Fed, and we'll be breaking down the Fed stuff, halftime report tomorrow. I'll do a lot on the weekend shows that I do. A lot of nuggets that I'm still reading through. But when the Fed is hinting towards interest rate hikes, finance can get a spark, and it can create a short-term spark. So if you get those technical signals, the macro environment is there for a finance quick hitting situation. So.
Yeah, and I was looking to add a little bit of finance in my portfolio. So this kind of just came up, and just when I see earnings so short and so close, I just think like especially because it's going to be right after or right before the 30-day mark. If earnings was right after, I would have done a selling premium trade into the earnings event, but it's going to expire prior to the expiration of the contracts. So
now, Frank, what did you like? You said Morgan Stanley was on your radar.
Yeah, I was thinking very, very similar, except I was jumping into either August or September and looking at the 90-100. Very similar. I mean, the technicals, I can't argue with that at all. I felt like as a whole, they stood out within the sector too.
So 90-100?
The 90-100. So that was going to be
350. So about,
about 350 gave me a little bit more room to, and again, because I'd be looking to get out before earnings as well, give me a little bit bigger of a net delta. So if we did stall out, as we got into, any particular area, I could just a little easier to take some profits, a little bit mellow, right? Just because I have a little bigger net delta than Jake's 95-100, willing to pay a little bit more for that. So if we worked into that 94-95 resistance level and we start to feel the ticking of the clock as we're getting closer and closer to earnings, I like having a little more net delta on my debit spreads as a whole. I don't really have any objection to Jake's, just a preference thing. I usually like to have at least a 25 net delta. So I have a little bit more, at least in my head, a little bit more flexibility in how I manage them.
Gotcha. Got it. All right. A couple ways to play it. Both guys like the stock. A couple of different things. Both you choosing bull call spread, which is always worth a note when two traders that didn't communicate say this is the strategy I would use in this situation. All
Yeah,
right, Frank.
that was a nice one. I give you that I give you that round. It doesn't matter what I'm about to bring here, Jake. I like that one, but I got to bring something here. So I'm going to visit my friends G Box, Green Box.
All right. A lot of stocks that I wasn't thinking about. This is why I like Trade Masters. All right. Ooh.
So here we have our friends Greenbox, a software type of company. So kind of lining up with technology. One thing that I really like about these guys is if they break this little resistance that we'll talk about here in a minute, it probably means that the technology sector is breaking out as well, right? Because we're kind of knocking on the door of resistance on XLK and tech as a whole. We've seen a little bit coming back into it. So maybe a little bonus, right? No guarantee, right? But a good chance that if we break out in G box, then we're also breaking out in the NASDAQ, or at least in the technology space. These guys, very clear level of resistance, as you can see. They did have the one pop on earnings, right? Which I think did us a favor. Really, it created our window, right? Because if we go back in time and there wasn't earnings, we're having this conversation in early April saying, hey, if these guys can break above this resistance level, let's call it a breakout. Maybe we'll talk about trading into it. Well, we got it on earnings, weren't able to hold. Ultimately, the breakout fails. The rest, as we say, is history, recent double bottom. Now we've worked back to that same resistance level, right? That same level of resistance. And that's exactly where we are consolidating as we're kind of riding the nine. As Coach Matt would say, do you think we need to take out the top of this range, which would be the candle from the 8th, which would put us at above 1567? I think we want to make sure that we're taking out that resistance. And I don't really see anything that's going to scare me off from a technical point of view if we can break out until we approach that $20 approximate resistance level. I'm going to call it 20. Technically, it was a little bit higher on the day after the earnings announcement, but I'm going to call it 20. So just a little bit of a break of just around 16, maybe a little bit below 16, trying to work into $18 for a first target. 20 is maybe a little aggressive to on one swing, but I think 18 is a very reasonable first target, and I think we do have opportunity to work into that 20 if we can catch some momentum, which, I mean, they've been riding the 9 since they double bottomed, right? And if they want to keep doing that, that's perfectly fine by me.
Frank, I was going to have this relaxing evening. You're giving me companies to research tonight.
There's
SVC, G-Box, you're making me I had a nice do nothing. I got research. I'm interested. This is one of those underbelly type stocks. I mean, all you have to do is look at the price movement since the election. So we're in the underbelly with this stock, which is an area that's treated me really well the last 6-7 months. Huge, massive premiums. But for me, because I'm not much of a short-term swing trader, the technicals are easy. Frank laid them all out. I have nothing down there. But now I got to go research this thing to see if there's a story here I like. But you're making me work tonight, Frank. You're making me work.
That's what I'm here for. You made me work. I'm going to make you work. That's I think that's only fair.
All right, Jake, are you going to make me work? Or are you going to give me something easy peasy in round 4? Go ahead.
I don't know, easy peasy, but it's a play. It's a play. So ticker symbol CUK.
Going to the.
Listen, that chart is fantastic. That they're very close on earnings would be my only concern, but that's a me thing. I'm interested to see where Jake's going with these guys.
So it's a very pretty chart. That's the first thing, obviously, that caught my attention. The only thing is, like you said, Frank, my thought was, okay, there's earnings. That's a problem. Well, why not make the problem a possible opportunity? So then I'm like, all right, how do I turn this into an earnings play? And my default is I love selling short strangles or condors into earnings and just trying to play for a little bit of premium.
Okay.
But it's also such a pretty bullish setup that I didn't want to do something super neutral. So I'm trying to do a little bit of a bullish skewed condor, if you will.
Okay.
Okay.
A little further out, a little skewed, but trying to take advantage of the earnings play. So I was looking at the 65-day contracts. I was looking to sell the 30, buy the 35 on the upside. And
so
then
you said August. We're looking at August.
August 21, 65-day contracts. So selling the 30, buying the 35. which is going to be, a couple bucks out of the money on the upside, and then doing right at the money on the downside is like selling the 25, buying the 20.
Okay, so skewing your condor.
Yeah, having the bullish tilt.
Having a bullish tilt, and when you do a bullish tilt, there's lots of different option strategies where you can go neutral with a tilt, right? And Jake is saying I'm going to sell the more aggressive bull put spread, the 25-22.50, and the more conservative, giving the stock some room to run, bear call spread. I get it, right? Especially with this chart setup, skewing it bullish. I get it.
I just don't know how you sell neutral on a chart looking like that, personally. It's just sometimes a little difficult, right? It looks like a nice little, old resistance, new support, nice bullish technical pattern. I would be buying a long call here if it wasn't for earnings, personally, but that's my play.
Any desire to take ownership of it if it skedaddles downward, or is this just a pure trade?
No, to me, this is a trade.
Okay.
I'm not super interested. I don't think I would be highly opposed. I'd look at the position, depending on how far out of the out it went. I could, if I did own this for like 2 months, I wouldn't be sad, because I like the pattern that it's showing over the last couple months. Nice, very higher high, higher low. I like that it kind of stalled out for a little bit, catching its breath before it popped. So I wouldn't mind owning it 2 months, but to me, I'm looking more as a trade versus an investment.
Yeah. I also personally just like good old-fashioned naked puts here too, selling it back in the bottom of the range, get big premiums. But listen, that strategy's worked well for me for 15 months. I don't broke, don't fix it. Interesting play, Jake. I'm gonna have to consider this and think through it. Y'all making me work tonight. You're all making me work tonight. I need a good Netflix show. Somebody recommend me a good Netflix show while I'm analyzing these trades for myself tonight.
Ooh, there you go. There you go.
So give me a good Netflix show. All right, Frank. What you
Yeah,
got,
that was
round four?
I saw that chart, Jake, and I'm kind of like Tim in the stickler, 14 days out if it's not an earnings play, and I was, not really thinking about it from that point of view, and I thought, of course, there's earnings in 2 weeks, right? What it really was a reminder that 2 weeks from now I'm going to be complaining all the time about earnings. Is what it reminded me. So
I mean, it's just a classic nice setup. Breakout,
it is a very nice
pullback.
chart.
I mean, there's that concept in technical analysis, and what we're seeing here, in case you're new to technical analysis and reading charts, when a stock trades sideways like it did for this long period of time and then breaks out, that's a bullish signal. Now, what happens oftentimes is that it will come back down and test that area, and that old resistance area oftentimes acts as new support, the new floor for price. And then you get an upward signal potential. It can provide a nice, I mean, there's directional potential here too, right? I mean, there's so many ways to play this. You can sell naked put, you could do advanced strategy like Jake, you could just go directional, breaking those high. I mean, there's a lot of ways to play this. A lot of ways to play this.
And while it's not really my way, if I'm willing to take the gamble on earnings, you can always do something fixed risk, right? With a long call or a bull call, where hey, it's a gamble. I understand that, but I can't lose more than I paid for it, so I know what the gamble actually is. So really interesting chart. Really interesting chart there. Shame on you, earnings. That won't be the last time I complain about earnings, Jake. I promise you. It is coming. But we've got I like 2 more, Mark. Is that what I got?
Yeah, 2 more. So they're round 4. You got 1 more pick after this one.
All right, good deal.
And if you know Frank has like this, I have no doubt, this massive list. It's like, I got 2 more. But
I know
give us your 2 best.
I don't know. I hate best. My philosophy when it comes to trading is trade a little, a lot.
The right? Second I said that, because Frank, he says that all the time, a little lot. He's like, listen, I'm going to spread out my bets over a lot of trades. So screw best. I'm going to have 50 trades and
ask me next
equally
week
across the board. Yep.
Ask me next week what my best ones were, right? So, but this is just going to be another directional stock play, and that's going to be CNR. Old cornerstone building brands. Couple things you gotta like about these guys. Number one, a very consistent trend as of late, right? Performing very admirably, Can't really complain if you've been an investor or a holder of CNR. They have definitely treated you right. We recently had a little consolidation followed by a big breakout candle on the 7th, right? Big pop off of that little consolidation as the 9 kind of sprung us through that. For whatever reason, we weren't able to carry on that momentum in the short term, presenting ourselves with an opportunity for a little bit of a pullback. This is kind of a mini version of that last one we looked at, where we've kind of come back and are testing the old resistance. Sure, that resistance is much, not developed as over time nearly as much, right? But the concept is true, testing that old resistance as new support. We've now seen 2 little inside candles that have formed up here over the last couple of trading days, right in that bull area of around the 20-day SMA, the 9 SMA, pretty consistent downward trend. And if you look to the hourly, which is always what I try to accomplish, we've already established higher lows on these guys, and technically we've actually made higher highs on them by sticking our nose above that yesterday high here today. So these would be the type of trade where I think we could set up. I think I would like one more day. One more inside candle would always help, when we're in these little pincher type of situations, but that's asking a lot. I think aggressively speaking, as long as I take out today's high, I'm probably taking out that trend line to the downside. That would be the number one thing I want to make sure happens. If I get that upward movement, I've got a pretty good idea to get my stop loss below this week's floor, basically, right? We smacked into 1784, 1791 here today, 1783. So I'd want to make sure I was below that. Not going to cost us a heck of a lot to dip down just a little bit further, maybe, and grab that 20 SMA, which, since it's not going to cost me much, might as well, I would say. Target wise, no reason technically, if we can get through this, another one of those triangle type of patterns, right? Working back to those old highs at 1970, 1973 as target 1. And then I like for a secondary target going into the 20, 25, 20, 50, maybe even the 21 range. I wouldn't want to try to go past 21. I think 20, 50 is about where I'd be comfortable personally targeting these guys as a second target. But I like the overall strength. I like that we've started to bottom out, right? We're starting to show signs of life on that intraday. Need a little upward movement, need to get rid of that bearish trend that the day traders have been playing. But if we can do so, I like these guys as just playing out of this triangle.
Love it. Love it. It was a beautiful chart. For momentum trader. I mean, even though I am not a momentum trader, I've hung around you guys for so many years. I know what you look for, and that's that's 2 charts tonight that the breaking of a trend line has played a big role in your analysis.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's 2 charts tonight, and both of them pretty textbook, because you don't use trend lines all the time, right? But when they stand out, they stand out.
Right, exactly. And I think, as a general rule, I think they're more valuable on pullbacks to me. I always try to turn a pullback trade, because breakouts are very straightforward and easy, and it's really only up to me to break my rules, right? It either broke by my rule or it didn't, and either I followed my rule or I didn't. But there's always a little bit more subjectivity in retracements, right? And so I'm always a big fan of saying, let's get rid of what the day traders have been doing. And to me, what's a bullish retracement is just an intraday downtrend within the longer term uptrend, right? And so I want to kind of scare that group off. And so, yeah, I'm always very mindful on my retracements in particular of, let's get through that downward trend. Let's get rid of those short sellers or those bears that are playing it on the intraday and have been doing pretty well, right, during this little pullback, and get them at least to stop messing around with it, and maybe even flip them over to my side, so I have them as potential buying partners instead of fighting against their momentum.
Logic makes sense. All right, got 1 round to go on this beautiful Wednesday night. I'm so excited to go sit on my porch tonight. I love late spring, early summer nights. They're one of my favorite time of year. So I'm in a delightful mood. That's where I'm going to do my research. I'm not going to have Netflix. I'm going to go drink on my porch while I study CVC.
I
One
thought
round left.
5 degrees in Salt Lake right now.
I was gonna say,
what?
yeah, it feels like July. I'm not
Isn't it
gonna
like
do that.
12 or
I know, but at 10 o'clock at night,
That is
oh
true.
no,
At 10 o'clock at night, it's pretty nice.
It feels nice. It feels nice.
Okay.
All right, Jake.
Okay.
One pick left. Last round. What you got?
All right. So I pulled out a trade that it used to be one of my favorite go-to trades in the marketplace. It's Tesla, TSLA.
Well, I would hope I know Tesla's ticker symbol.
You were explaining like what pullback was earlier, so there's different people in the chat, but I was thinking a pretty generic, but I what I really liked about Tesla is number one of my long-term positions, but I trade around that, and I like how their earnings announcement is ending right after that next July expiration cycle. So you got one more 30 days to get some like short-term.
All right, so you got another monthly before earnings. All right. Always
Exactly.
It's always nice, right? It's always nice.
So I was thinking another iron condor. I would usually go to a short strangle, but I feel like for the community, an iron condor on this type of symbol would be probably more appropriate. So going to that 30-day contract, the July 16 expiration, and then trying to sell a 16 delta. So
Okay, what strike prices are we looking at?
We're looking at on the downside a 520 by a 510, and on the upside I'm looking 695 to a 705, defaulting to a 10-point spread.
What were the upper ones?
695, 705.
All right, and so this is before earnings, correct?
Mm-hmm.
And these lines are approximate. I just always like to, for me personally, because I don't do condors often, but I like to visualize where they are compared to support, compared to resistance levels.
Yeah.
You know, I like that visual. I mean, that's just how it helps me process it.
I do the same thing. I always put lines on my charts. So I'm looking at something where I'm trying to capture 75% of the premium prior to the expiration. In and out, one standard deviation away, 30-day cash flow trade. I used to do this and Amazon. Tesla and Amazon were my top 2 monthly condors I used to do every month. Not so much recently, but it's been calming down, so to speak, and there might be a nice little lull. I don't know about any big news announcements they have coming out in the next little bit. Could be mistaken there, but seems like a decent.
Oh yeah, they're probably nothing because Elon doesn't work on Tesla anymore. He just likes tweeting about crypto. So
yeah, about Bitcoin and Doge, and getting right. So I like it. It's just it's a short-term cash flow trade. Nothing super sexy.
What would and this is the question on credit plays, because I've done a few over the years on Tesla. And Tesla, I mean, before there was an underbelly, there was Tesla, right? Big, huge price movements constantly. What would scare you off the trade? I mean, like, what would get you to say, all right, I'm going to take a small loss, on either side? Is there a technical level, something?
So for me, the line in the sand is 0.5% away from the short strike.
Okay. So I like that. I like a concrete rule.
Yeah.
That if it gets 0.5% from the short strike, I close it. I like that. That's a followable rule, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's a followable rule.
To me, it's by the time it gets to your short strike, it's too late. So for me, it's right before it gets there I'm out.
I mean, Tyler said something the other day that just wrong. He's like, 90% of success in the market's trade management. It's not stock picking. It's not this. I don't know if I agree with the percentage, but I love the sentiment.
Right.
I love the sentiment is that, trade management is so key. You never want to be sitting in front of your computer being like, what should I do? That should be laid out ahead of time. So I like how you have a
game at that point, because at that point your emotions are too high. You don't know what to do because you're emotional at that point.
Yep.
All right. Last pick. Make me emotional, Frank. Make me emotional.
I don't think I'm going to make you emotional with these guys, but you never know. You never know. I'm going to go with ATH, all-time high. I brought these characters up a few times over the last couple of weeks
Yes, you
because they
have.
have been consolidating and holding up top for a while now. It's looking really interesting on the weekly. You look at it on a weekly time frame, and it looks like exactly what you would want a weekly high base to look like, or at least
Oh,
it looks like what I would want a weekly high base to look like personally. It's held up in the face of, not dramatic, but certainly there's been some selling in the financial sector, and have held up, actually able to break out here today. These guys are in the insurance game. I've been watching them for a breakout. We'll see where it goes, but I haven't been watching them this long just to say, well, they broke out today. Too bad, right? We'll see where this one takes us. On the confirmation, today we did close above resistance, so taking out today's high would be the follow through that I ask for on a breakout. So that would be the signal I ask for in this scenario.
I mean, how
Today's high.
clean is that resistance level?
It's been very well
Hey,
behaved.
don't even
right?
lie. You say no best. You save your best for last. I know
So
you came out strong.
see, I won't, because every time I pick, whenever Matt makes me pick one, I'm always wrong. I always pick the wrong one. I don't like to pick.
Oh, you don't put all your eggs in one basket, right? But that's
No, but I don't like to pick. I don't like to have favorites. But I do really like this breakout. Of course, it looks really
so
nice
you
on
like
the.
a continuation
I like a
above
continuation
the
on
high.
these guys. They just aren't great on the option side of things. So while I would love to be able to do something, I wouldn't feel comfortable playing options with these guys. And if, when in doubt, roll with the stock is my philosophy. I don't want to get messing around with some illiquid options and get stuck. So I'm looking at, taking out today's high as my signal to for action. I look at today's close as a confirmation. I like a 67.50 for my first target, and then a 70 for a second target. Again, as we work into earnings, these guys aren't close to earnings, so we probably don't have that consideration in the short term, but weeks go by fairly quickly. On the stop loss side of things, I think you have a couple of options depending on how you like to do things. I think the aggressive option is to go below today's low. That's a little more aggressive than I'd want to go. But if we did that, we're getting the 90 MA, we're getting intraday support, we're getting the breakout channel. I would have no objection to somebody doing that, and it will give us a little better risk to reward if we go that route. Option two is basically go below this week's low, or I'm sorry, yesterday's low, which gives us a little more intraday support, 20-day moving average on top of everything that we brought up before. And option three would be going over to that weekly chart and using the weekly last week's candle and using that low, which would feel really comfortable to me. If risk to reward wasn't a factor, which obviously it is, I would like to have my stop loss below last week's weekly doji candle if I could make that work. But I have a few options that I'd feel comfortable with from a stop loss perspective. Like how they've held up. Obviously, I like a nice clean breakout here at the top. So that is my my last one for the evening.
What do you think about it, Jakey?
I really like it. So
I like it a
like
lot
how you
too.
gave some people some options, because I was thinking the same way. You're like, you could put it under today's low. I'm like, I guess you could. I wouldn't be me as a trader. You could go back down underneath yesterday's, and I think it's a great setup. And I think it was a great teaching
Now,
moment to
I
show.
mean, where traders place stop losses, I mean, there's a lot of personality. I mean, I hate being wrong, right? So that's my personality. I can't change that. So I tend to create rules that have really broad stop losses, right? But I need to have the reward to go with it. Just, and some people they love. I mean, they love tight stops. It's just, once again, map it out ahead of time, and hopefully it's consistent with everything. I mean, you don't want to have tight stops on two trades and really big stops on other. I like consistency in a general approach.
Oh, for sure. I'm a big fan of always giving yourself 3 stop loss options, right? Because I'm not going to completely ignore a trade because I can't because I'd rather, I'm always wanting to give it more room. I honestly believe that most of us as traders, would probably benefit from more room on our stop losses because of the nature of the market. I always like to give myself three choices though, because I want to be able to compare apples to apples. How much am I really getting by going yesterday's low instead of today's low? Sometimes not much, sometimes a lot, right? I like to give myself options. I'm not going to throw a good trade setup away simply because I would, prefer a little wider stop if it fits within the parameters of my, tight, middle, and, wide stop, if you want to call it that. Then I am good to go. I've always been a believer and always debate three different stop loss locations and make the best choice. And that way you can sometimes have a tight stop and you can sometimes have a wider stop, and you're not, because Mark's 100% right. You got to find ways to be consistent in the market. I think that's a way to still be consistent while still giving yourself some options.
I love it, love it, love it. Listen, once again, another episode, great picks. I mean, stuff to think about, stuff to look at, plenty of options. Trade Masters is just that midweek point in my work week where I'm just like, I get like energized with work of others. Frank, I'm gonna give you the win tonight. I love the CSVC. I'm gonna dive into that first and foremost.
Let me know what you find, because I just, the technicals.
I love the technical. I love the technical opportunity. I'm gonna see if I like the company. That last chart though, I was like, who's gonna win tonight? The last chart for me. I mean, that's just I like it a lot. Tell, I'm gonna go look because I'm gonna get called out of all my stuff on Tell, Jake, on this big run up. I'm gonna go see if I can re-up that.
Yeah, I'm interested in taking a look at that. And this is where I like Mark, because I might find some charts, but he does the digging into the into the underbelly of the company, and then I can just steal his hard work. So that's what's awesome about being part of a community, right?
And Jake, it's really hard to come and win with me as the judge when you go bullish on Tesla at all. So
that was the mistake you made. You had this in the bag until you went bullish on
Tesla, but I get
what?
It.
No, like you probably. I mean, you probably haven't heard it. I think Tesla Child's the poster child for overvalued companies. My opinion, obviously, but.
And that's where the world. That's the world we're trading in. So,
but isn't it great though? And this is what I say all the time, because sometimes people are about Tesla. There's thousands of things to trade. I can be dead wrong because I'm not going to go bearish on Tesla either. I'll leave that to my.
I'm not betting against Elon.
That's kind of where I am. When I'm not a bull, I'm just not involved.
When I'm not a bull, I'm just not involved, right? And so listen, and that's why I can root for Tesla to go to the moon. It don't cost me any money. But Frank, as winner, back-to-back weeks, my friend. That's 2 in a row.
All right.
You get the last word.
Well, we are in still summer choppy time, right? And certainly the market has played out that way. We'll have to give it a few days to see the way that the market truly digests the Fed stuff here today. Initial reaction sell, and then people buying right back in on the dip, right? You buy the dip, as they say. So just make sure that you're trading within your systems. Don't be surprised when there's a little more chop in the summer, because history will suggest that there is a little more
Frank,
chop.
you've been saying that for weeks. Expand on that, because you've been saying it for weeks.
Well, it just comes down to the historical performance of the market. It historically, as we get into the May, later parts of May, going throughout the summer, you just see a lot of sideways action in the broad market. You see movement. You don't just do nothing, right? You go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And yes, any year, anything can happen. But from a historical point of view, that is what usually happens. So when I get into these summer months, I take that and I say, hey, I hope that that's not what happens. I don't like that market. I like trending markets. I'm a, swing trader, momentum trader, whatever you want to call me. I like when things are moving and shaking, but I'm not going to ignore the history. And it helps me as I'm trying to decide, how do I want to manage these trades, quicker to take profits or at least scale out. I always think it's a good idea to pay attention to the historical nature of the market, just not to overvalue it.
Wise words. Everyone, have a wonderful night. That summer sun is coming in on me. But I am looking for whatever you're doing tonight, spending it with family, spending it with loved ones, or just on the solo like myself tonight. Have a wonderful, wonderful evening. And be sure to check out Halftime Report tomorrow. I know I was talking to Matt and Tim. They're going to break down the analysis on the Fed meeting to see what's there. I believe Tyler and Greg might be there. Might be a full house tomorrow. And then we'll just be so we're going to be talking about it a lot.
Yeah, it's going to be
tomorrow, so
interesting.
Be sure to check out the halftime report tomorrow. Everyone, Tackle Trading, we love you. Have a wonderful night.